Hey guys, Edre here, and I'm actually really excited for this review. Just because I wasn't sure what I was getting into here. I do want to take this brief moment to talk about my last big review I did, the Hayley Williams one, which got a pretty negative reception due to my low score. Luckily, this album from Kehlani, it was good until it wasn't. Actually, I have a lot of the same, it follows a lot of the same things that I felt on that Hayley Williams record. I'll go into that a little deeper. But I'm going to start here with the background on how I feel about Kehlani. If I'm being completely honest here, I didn't really know much about Kehlani until Post Malone's Stoney album in 2016, where she is featured on a song. Personally, it's not one of my favorite songs on the album, but I did quite like her voice, and I would end up checking out some of her discography. But I found that most of it to me felt very bland and uninspired. Even though I did like her voice, I did quite like her style. I just thought that the music she was singing over and rapping over, depending on how you view it, just wasn't all there. So going into this, I was hoping for the best, but I didn't have my hopes too high. But I will say the first thing that stuck out to me, as does with most pop albums, is the atmosphere. When I'm listening to a pop album, I'm not looking for complexity, I'm looking for good atmospheres, good soundscapes. And this album follows through with that very well. I was very satisfied with the sounds and atmospheres and synths and all that, and even some of the more natural instruments throughout this album. Lyrically, I have some mixed feelings here. I think that some of these songs do come off a bit typical for your pop, does come off a bit cringy here and there, but it's not anything that's unlistenable. It's nothing that I can't look past when listening to this album. So I try to look past that. I will say, vocally, I think that even despite the use of autotune, I actually think it adds a little bit of a layer to this album. I think she has quite a good flow, but with that little bit of autotune peeking in here and there, it really gives it that modern feel. That I quite like. A lot of people give a lot of criticism to artists for even using autotune at all. I think people overreact. I think that some artists need it, some artists don't. But I think that she utilizes it well enough to the point where it's not distracting, and I think it really makes her voice shine. And in going into the track list, most of these songs are pretty solid pop songs. It's a pretty solid piece of work. And I do think it's better than some of her past songs and works that she's put out. And I will say that the features are kind of hit or miss here. I really I'm not too crazy about some of these features. I think like the James Blake one's okay, and I actually do think Tory Lanez was really good as well. I think his feature was really good. And the thing I like about Tory Lanez is that he's one of the biggest rising stars of the past year. So it's nice to hear him still kind of early on getting featured on a relatively bigger artist's album. But at the end of the day, what I kind of feel here is that despite this being a solid pop album, some things do feel a bit unconventional, a bit strange here and there. Well, I think Bad News is a solid track, probably my favorite on here. I think Toxic is a very good opener, and I think Serial Lover and Grieving have really good instrumental and beat behind it to really push the song up. Some of these songs end up falling into the kind of forgettable area, where I don't like them, but I also don't hate them. I'm not crazy about them. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I think this album isn't very unique. I feel like I've heard this style before. But it is well crafted. It may not be original, but it is well crafted. But it's the not unique stuff, it's the repetitiveness of some of these songs and some of the track list here that really drags this album down, even if I think it is well crafted and well put together. So I will say, unfortunately, I was hoping that I would give this a bit higher of a rating, but I still quite enjoy this thing. I still think it is a solid piece of work. And that is why I have settled on giving this a strong 6 out of 10. For those who don't know my reviews, anything above a 5 is good, anything below a 5 is bad. So I do like this album. This is slightly above average for a normal album I've listened to. I like it. I think it's well put together. I think it's well crafted. I just wish it was a little more unique and a bit more fine-tuned in certain spots. That being said, I think that Kehlani has a strong career ahead of her. I think that her voice is great, and I think that she does shine bright on this album, even if I think the end product wasn't the best. So that's it for now. Kehlani, it was good until it wasn't.